the animal's dam. It was dry, said Uta, as dry as last year's spring biltong. For a long time, the old man in the sky shed down strong light and sucked all the water out of the veld. From morning to night he poured down hotness on the world, and when he rolled round to sleep, hot wind blew, and blew, and blew, till he woke to shine again. The karoo bushes dried up, the rivers had no water, and the poor animals began to die from thirst. It was such a drought as you have never seen. At last, Liu called the animals together to make a plan. The sun had gone under, and the Lady Moon was sailing in the sky, beautiful as she always is, and looking down on the hot world. Liu sat under a krantz, where it was a little cool, and the others sat round him like a watermelon slice. Leopard, hyena, babian, jackals, hare, and tortoise were in front. They were the top of the order. The smaller ones, like dassy, meerkat, and hedgehogs, were at the sides, and zebra, springbok, ostrich, and giraffe waited in the veld to hear the news. They pretended to be eating, but all the time their ears went backwards and forwards to catch every little sound, and they were ready at the first sign of danger to race away, kicking up the dust so that Liu would not be able to see them. But they needn't have been afraid. Liu was too hot and tired and weak to catch anything. He just sat against the krantz with his dry tongue hanging out, and the others just lay around about the watermelon slice with their dry tongues hanging out, and every time they looked at the sky to see if any clouds were coming up. But no, the sky was just like a big hot soup poured over their heads, and the Lady Moon making a silver road across it, and the little stars shining like bits broken off the big hot sun. There was nothing that even looked like a cloud. At last Liu pulled it in his tongue and rolled it about in his mouth to get the dryness off. When it stopped rattling, he began to talk. "Friends and brothers and nephews," he said. Yes, just like that, Liu began. He was so miserable that he felt friendly with them all. "Friends and brothers and nephews, it is time to make a plan. You know how it is with a drought. When it is at its worst, the bottom of the cloud falls out, and the water runs away fast to the sea, where there is too much water already, and the poor karoo is left again without any. Even if a land rain comes, it just sinks in, because the ground is too loose and dry to hold it. So we must make a plan to keep the water, and my plan is to dig a dam. But it's no use for one or two to work. Everyone must help. What do you say?" "Certainly," said Leopard. "Certainly," said Hyena. "Certainly," said Ant Bear. "Certainly," said the Jackals. But he winked his eye at Lady Moon, and then put his nose into the warm sand so that no one could see his sly smile. All the other animals said certainly, and they began to talk about the dam. Dear land, a person would never have said their throats were dry, but each one had a different plan, and each one talked without listening to the other. It was like a church bazaar. Yes, long ago, when Uta was young, he was on a bazaar in the village, but he was glad when he could creep into the veld again and get the noise out of his ears. At last, the water tortoise, he was with a wise little head under the patchwork shell, said, "Let us go now while it is cool and look for a place for the dam." So they hunted about and found a nice place, and soon they began to make the dam. They scratched, they dug, they poked, they bored, they pushed, and they rolled, and they did their best so that the dam could be ready when the rain came. Only Lazy Jackal did not work. He just roamed around saying to the others, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" Till at last they asked, "Why don't you do it yourself?" The Jackals only laughed at them. "And why should I be so foolish as to scratch my nails off for your old dam?" he said. "But you said certainly too when asked us, didn't you?" they asked. Then Jackals laughed more than ever. "Ha ha ha! Am I a slave of my word? That was last night. Don't you know a thing is one color by moonlight and is quite another color when the sun shines on it? Ha ha ha!" So he went about bothering the poor animals that were working so hard and laughing at them when they got hot and tired. What's the use of working so hard? Those who do not work will also drink. "How do you know?" they asked. "Wait a bit, you'll see," said sly Jackals, winking his eye again. At last the dam was finished, and that very night the rain began. It kept on and on till the dam was quite full, and the water began to run away over the veld down to the great big dam called the sea. That is the mother of all water, and so broad that you truly can't see the wall at the other side, even when you stand on a high hill. Yes, so Uta has heard from truth-telling people the milk bushes and karoo bushes grew green again, and the little veld flowers burst forth of the hard ground, and opened their white, blue, and pink, and purple eyes to look at the sun. They were like variegated cosses spread out on the veld, and the old man in the sky was not so fierce any more. He did not burn them with his hotness, but looked at them kindly. And the animals were touched so glad for the water. From far and near they came to drink from the dam. But Jackals was before them all. Soon after the sun went down, the wild animals sleep in the daytime and hunt in the night. He went to the dam and drank as much water as he wanted, filled his clay pot with some to take home. Then he swam round and round to get cool, making the water muddy and dirty. And when the other animals came to drink, he slipped over the dam wall and was lost to the valve, as if he had been a large pin. My, but Oomloo was very angry. Hurrah, he roared. Roar! What is this for a thing? Does the lazy one think he can share with the workers? Who ever heard of such a thing? Roar! Here, Borbayan, take this big Kiri and hide yourself by the dam tonight, so that you can catch this vagabond, this water stealer. Early that night, and there was Jackals again. He peeped this way and that way. And yes, truly there was old Brer Babian, lying amongst the bushes, but Jackals was too slick for him. He made as if he didn't see him. He danced along his hind legs all around the edge of the dam, singing, "Hing ding ding, hong make a ding, my sweet, sweet water." He sang this over and over, and every time he came to the end of the line, he dipped his fingers into the clay pot and sucked them. "Ah, but my honey is nice," he said, licking his lips. "What do I want with their dirty old water when I have this whole pot full of nice, sweet water?" Baboons will do anything for honey, and when old Brer Babian heard Jackals, he forgot he was there to guard the dam. He crept out from his hiding place, a little nearer and a little nearer, and at last he couldn't keep quiet any longer. When Jackals came dancing along again, he called out in a great hurry, "Good evening, Jackals. Please give me a little of your sweet water too." "Arr!" said Jackals, jumping to one side and pretending to be startled. "What a fright you gave me. What are you doing here, Brer Babian?" "Oh no, Jackals. I'm just taking a little walk. It's such a fine night. But why have you got that big Kiri? Only to dig out inchies? Do you really want some of my sweet water?" "Yes, please, Jackal," said Brer Babian, licking his lips. "And what will you give me for it?" "I'll let you fill your pot with water from the dam." "Oh, I don't want any of that dirty old dam water. But I know how fond you are of this sweet water, Brer. So I'll let you drink some. Here, I'll hold your Kiri while you drink." Brer Babian was in such a hurry to get the honey, he just threw the Kiri to the Jackals. But just as he was going to put his fingers into the pot, Jackals pulled it away. "No, wait a bit, Brer," he said. "I'll show you a better way. It will taste much nicer if you lay down." "Ach, no, really, Jackals?" "Yes, really," said Jackals. "And if you don't lie down at once, you won't get a drop of my sweet water." He spoke so crossly, and Babian was so tame by this time, he was ready to believe anything. So he lay down, and Jackal stood over him with his knapsack reim. "Now, brother, first I'll tie you with my reim, and then I'll feed you with the honey." Yes, said Brer Babian quickly. His mouth was watering for the honey. He couldn't think of anything else, and he had long ago forgotten about looking after the dam. It goes so when a person thinks only of what he wants and not of what he must. So he then let Jackals tie his hands and feet, and even his tail. Then he opened his mouth wide. But Jackals only danced round and round, sticking his fingers into the pot and licking them and singing, "Hing ting ting, honka make a ding, my sweet, sweet water, where's mine?" Cried Brer Babian. "You said you would feed me. Where's my sweet water?" "Here's all the sweet water you'll get from me," said Jackals, and crack, he gave poor Brer Babian a hit with the curry. "Burgum, burgum." "Help!" screamed Brer Babian, and tried to roll away. But there was no one to help him, so he could only scream and roll over, and each time he rolled over, Jackals hit him again. Crack! At last he squeezed the clay pot, and there was never any honey in it at all. Over Brer Babian's head, while he ran off and drank as much water as he wanted, and swam and stirred up the mud. Then he took the clay pot off of Brer Babian's head, filled it with water, dancing off, singing, "Hing ting ting, honk and make it ding, my sweet, sweet water. Goodbye, brother," he called out. "I hope you enjoy the sweet water you'll get from Oomloo when he sees how well you've looked after the dam." Poor old Brer Babian was so miserable, but he was even more unhappy after Oomloo had punished him and set him on a large stone for the other animals to mock at. It was sad. They came in a long string, big ones and little ones, and each one stopped in front of the big stone and stuck out his tongue, then turned around and stuck out his tail. Yes, so rude they were to Brer Babian, till the poor old animal got ashamed, and sat all in a heap, hanging down his head, trying not to see how they were mocking him. When all the animals had passed on and drunk water, Umlu untied Bebe and Brer and let him go, and off he went to the cranzies as fast as he could with his tail between his legs. The disobedient daughter who married a skull. Efong Idum was a native of Cobham town. He had a very fine daughter whose name was Efong. All the young men in the country wanted to marry her on account of her beauty, but she refused all offers of marriage in spite of repeated entreaties from her parents, and she was very vain, and she said she would only marry the best-looking man in the country, who would have to be young and strong and capable of loving her properly. Most of the men her parents wanted her to marry, although they were rich, were old and ugly. So the girl continued to disobey her parents, at which they were very much grieved. The skull who lived in the spirit land heard of the beauty of this colored perversion, and thought he would like to possess her. So he went amongst his friends and borrowed different parts of the body from them, all of the best. From one he got a good head, another lent him a body, a third gave him strong arms, and a fourth lent him a fine pair of legs. At last he was complete, and was a very perfect specimen of manhood. He then left the spirit land and went to the Cobham market, where he saw Afong and admired her very much. About this time, Afong heard that a very fine man had been seen in the market, who was better looking than any of the natives. She therefore went to the market at once, and directly she saw the skull in his borrowed beauty, she fell in love with him and invited him to her house. The skull was delighted and went home with her, and on his arrival was introduced by the girl to her parents, and immediately asked their consent to marry their daughter. At first they refused, as they did not wish her to marry a stranger, but at last they agreed. He lived with Afong for 2 days in her parents' house, and then he wished to take his wife back to his country, which was far off. To this the girl readily agreed, and as he was such a fine man, but her parents tried to persuade her not to go. However, being very headstrong, she made up her mind to go, and they started off together. After they had been gone a few days, the father consulted his juju man, who was casting lots, very soon discovered that his daughter's husband belonged to the spirit land, and that she would surely be killed. They therefore all mourned her as dead. After walking for several days, Afong and the skull crossed the border between the spirit land and the human country. Directly they set foot in the spirit land. First of all, one man came to the skull and demanded his legs, then another his head, the next his body, and so on, until in a few minutes the skull was left by itself in all its natural ugliness. At this the girl was very frightened and wanted to return home. The skull would not allow this and ordered her to go with him. When they arrived at the skull's house, they found his mother, who was very old, quite incapable of doing any work, who could only creep about. Afong tried her best to help her, and cooked her food, and brought water and firewood for the old woman. The old creature was very grateful for these attentions, and soon became quite fond of Afong. One day the old woman told Afong that she was very sorry for her, but all the people in the spirit land were cannibals, and when they heard there was a human being in their country, they would come down and kill her and eat her. The skull's mother then hid Afong, and as she had looked after her so well, she promised she would send her back to her country as soon as possible, providing that she promised for the future to obey her parents. This Afong readily consented to do. Then the old woman sent for the spider, who was a very clever hairdresser, and made him dress Afong's hair in the latest fashion. She also presented her with anklets and other things on account of her kindness. She then made a juju and called the winds to come and convey Afong to her home. At first a violent tornado came, with thunder, lightning, and rain, but the skull's mother sent him away unsuitable. The next to come was a gentle breeze, so she told the breeze to carry Afong to her mother's house, and said goodbye to her. Very soon afterwards the breeze deposited Afong outside her home and left her there. When the parents saw their daughter, they were very glad, as they had for some months given her up as lost. The father spread a soft animal's skins on the ground from where his daughter was standing all the way to the house, so that her feet would not be soiled. Afong then walked to the house, and her father called all the young girls who belonged to Afong's company to come and dance, and the feasting and dancing was kept up for 8 days and nights. When the rejoicing was over, the father reported what had happened to the chief of the town. The chief then passed a law that parents should never allow their daughters to marry strangers who come from a far country. Then the father told his daughter to marry a friend of his, and she willingly consented, and lived with him for many years, and had many children. The Flying Lion. Once upon a time, remarked Uta thoughtfully, Lu used to fly, "Oh," said the children, all together, and their eyes widened with terror at the picture called upon by Uta's words. Yes, and then nothing could live before him. His wings were not covered with feathers. They were like the wings of Brother Bat, all skin and ribs, but they were very big and very thick and very strong. And when he wasn't flying, they were folded flat against his sides. When he was angry, he let the points down to the ground. Turr, like upas, turkey. When he gobbled, gobbles, and struts before his wives, turr. And when he wanted to raise from the ground, he spread them out and flapped them up and down, slowly at first, then faster and faster, till he made a big wind with them and sailed away into the air. Uta, flapping his crooked arms and puffing out his disproportionate chest, seemed to follow suit, but suddenly subsided again on his stool. Ugh, but it was a terrible sight. Then, when he was high above the earth, he would look down for something to kill. If he saw a herd of springbok, he would fly along till he was just over them and pick out a nice fat one. Then he would stretch out his iron claws, fold his wings, and whoops! Down he would fall on the poor bokie before it had time to jump away. Yes, that was the way Umlu hunted in the olden times. There was only one thing he was afraid of, and that was the bones of the animals he caught and ate would be broken to pieces. No one knew why, and everyone was too frightened of Umlu to try and find out. He used to keep them all at his home in their kransies, and he had crows to look after them, 2 at a time. Not like the ugly black crows that build in the willow trees near the dam, but white crows, the kind that come only once in many years. As soon as a white crow baby was found, it was taken to Umlu. That was his order. Then he kept it in the kransies of the mountains and let it grow big. And when the old white crows died, the next eldest became watchman. And so there were always white crows to watch the bones when Umlu went hunting. But one day, while he was away, Big Brother Bullfrog came along. Hop, hippity, hop, 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 hippity, hop, and said, "Why do you sit here all day, you white-head crows?" And the white-head crows said, "We sit here to look after the bones for Umlu." "Ah, you must be tired of sitting," said Big Brother Bullfrog. "You fly away a little and stretch your wings. I will sit here and look after the bones." The white crows looked this way and that way, up and down, and all around. But no, they couldn't see Umlu, and they thought, now's our chance to get away for a fly. So they said, "Craw, craw," and stretched out their wings and flew away. Big Brother Bullfrog called out after them, "Don't hurry back. Stay as long as you like. I will take care of the bones." But as soon as they were gone, he said, "Now I shall find out why Umlu keeps the bones from being broken. Now I shall see why men and animals can live no longer." And he went from one to the other end of Umlu's house at the bottom of the krantz, breaking all the bones he could find. Ah, but he worked quickly. Crack, 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 crack. Wherever he went, he broke bones. Then when he had finished, he hopped away. Hop, hop, hippity, hop, 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 hippity, hop, as fast as he could. When he had nearly reached his dam in the veld, the white crows overtook him. They had been to the krantz, and they were frightened when they saw all the broken bones. "Craw, craw," they said. "Brother Big Bullfrog, why are you so wicked? Umlu will be very angry. He will bite off our nice white heads. Craw, craw, and without a head, who can live?" But Brother Big Bullfrog pretended he didn't hear. He just hopped on as fast as he could, and the white crows went after him. "It's no good hopping away, Brother Bullfrog," they said. "Umlu will find you wherever you are, and with one blow of his iron claws, he will kill you." But old Brother Big Bullfrog didn't take any notice. He just hopped on, and when he came to his dam, he sat back at the edge of the water and blinked the beautiful eyes in the ugly old head, and said, "When Umlu comes, tell him I am the man who broke the bones. Tell him I live in this dam, and if he wants to see me, he must come here." The white crows were very cross. They flew down quickly to peck Big Brother Bullfrog, but they only dug their beaks into the soft mud, because Big Brother Bullfrog wasn't sitting there any longer. Kablops! He had dived into the dam, and the white crows could only see the rings around the place where he had made a hole in the water. Umlu was far away in the veld, waiting for food. At last he saw a herd of zebras, the little striped horses that he was very fond of, and he tried to fly up so he could fall on one of them, but he couldn't. He tried again, but no, he couldn't. He spread out his wings and flapped them, but they were quite weak, like an umbrella when the ribs are broken. Then Umlu knew there must be something wrong at his house. and he was as unsettled as he was angry. He struck his iron claws into the ground and roared and roared. Softly he began like thunder, far away, rolling through the cliffs, then louder and louder, till the earth beneath him seemed to shake. It was a terrible noise, but all his roaring didn't help him. He couldn't fly, and at last he had to get up and walk home. He found the poor white crows nearly dead with fright, but they soon found out that he could no longer fly, so they weren't afraid of him. He roared, "What have you done to make my wings so weak?" And they said, while was away, someone came and broke all the bones. And Lu said, "You were put here to watch them. It is your fault that they are broken, and to punish you, I'm going to bite your stupid white heads off." Roar! He sprang towards them, but now they knew he couldn't fly. They were not afraid of him. They flew away and sailed round in the air over his head, just too high for him to reach, and they called out, "Ha ha ha, whom cannot catch us? The bones are broken, and his wings are useless. Now men and animals can live again. We will fly away and tell them the good news." Lu sprang into the air, first to one side, then the other, striking at them, but he couldn't reach them. And when he found all his efforts were in vain, he rolled on the ground and roared louder than ever. The white crows flew round him in rings and called out, "Ha ha ha, he can no longer fly. He only rolls and roars." The man who broke the bone said, "If Lu wants me, he can come and look for me at the dam." Craw, craw, and they flew away. Then Lu thought, "Wait, I'll get hold of one who broke the bones. I'll get him." So he went to the dam, and there was old Brother Bullfrog sitting in the sun at the water's edge. Lu crept up slowly, quietly, like a snake, behind Brother Bullfrog. "Ha! Now I've got him," he thought, and made a spring. But Brother Bullfrog said, "Ho!" and dived in, kaplops, and came up on the other side of the dam, and sat there blinking in the sun. Lu ran around as hard as he could, and was just going to spring when kaplops! Brother Bullfrog dived in again, and came up on the other side of the dam. And so it went on. Each time, just when Lu had nearly caught him, Brother Bullfrog dived in, kerplops, and called out, "Ho!" from the other side of the dam. Then, at last, Lu saw it was no use trying to catch Brother Bullfrog, so he went home to see if he could mend the broken bones. But he could not, and from that day, he could no longer fly, only walk upon his iron claws. Also, from that day, he learned to creep quietly, like a snake after his game. And though he still catches them and eats them, he is not as dangerous as he was when he could fly. And the white crows can no longer speak. They can only say, "Craw, craw." But the old big Brother Bullfrog still goes hop, hop, hippity hop round the dam, and whenever he sees Lu, he just says "ho" and dives into the water, kaplops, as fast as he can, and sits there laughing when he hears Lu roar with anger.